that would go on your site too.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the Manly Pinterest Tip Show. I'm Jeff C., and you're not. I'm so glad for you guys to join us. You know, last time I had this special guest on, the Google gods were not smiling down upon us, and it only recorded about the last 7 minutes of the show. And so thanks so much for Azure for coming back on and doing it one more time. And I met Azure during the Social Media Marketing World Conference, and we met through Cynthia Sanchez. And in fact, she was on the live hangout we did there at the beginning of the conference. And so when I heard her, I said, I got to have her on the show. And so, Azure, thank you so much for being here again with us today.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and I want to give a little bio on everything about you. She is a content manager for Constant Contact in Massachusetts, where she oversees the company's Pinterest and Instagram channels. She creates educational content. She presents webinars and writes for the Constant Contact blog about social media and email marketing best practices for small businesses and nonprofits. And if you haven't checked out their Pinterest account, it is awesome. There's tons of great information there. It's one of my go-to sources that I like to go to almost every day to check out what new stuff they have. So, Azure, thanks so much. And we're just going to go ahead and run through the questions. I appreciate everybody who's stopping by, who's with us live today. If any of you have any questions you'd like to ask her, make sure you ask in the comment section, and we'll bring those up during the show today. So let's go ahead and just kind of get started. Kind of tell us your backstory and how you kind of got started in social media.
Yeah, I was kind of I started in a completely different place. I started out in print journalism and worked at a couple of different newspapers in the Midwest, and then switched over to PR and marketing in colleges and universities. And while I was at the first college I worked at, social media was just starting. You know, I was one of the first people to get on Facebook because I had a .edu email address. I was not a student, I was staff, but it's an .edu email address. So, you know, I got on Facebook, started exploring some of these things that were going on, and at the same time I was going to grad school and realized that, you know, something interesting going on here and people are communicating in a different way. So for my grad school thesis, I wrote about how adults in their 20s and 30s use social media, because at that time Facebook was still so new, and you had people talking about, hey, your kid's on Facebook, watch out, or grandma's on Facebook, isn't that cute? And no one was talking about my age group. So that's what I did for my thesis. I studied different people in their 20s and 30s and talked about how they use social media. And then there I decided that really, you know, my marketing and PR focus, I really wanted it to be in social media marketing. So I moved to another university where I was their webmaster and social media person for their alumni office. And then I had a friend who worked at Constant Contact and really recommended them to me. So I wanted to leave the university world and go corporate, and I'm glad I did. I've been here for 4 years now, and just love it here. I mean, you know, the webinars that we do, educating small businesses and nonprofits, and then all the social channels we use to help educate and provide resources to people. It's just been a great experience.
Very cool. So when you were first started, did you say, oh, the social media is kind of a new thing, and did you see like the opportunities there, or was it, you know, I want to go and just do something totally new, totally different? Kind of, why did you decide I'm going to kind of focus on, I mean, you wrote your thesis on it. I mean, that's pretty.
Yeah. It was kind of a mix of both. You know, it was, you know, the end of, you know, print journalism was not as lucrative as it used to be. And I think I left at the right time, although I really loved the career there. But at the same time, you know, I was trying to do PR, traditional PR, and there wasn't enough space in newspapers for the press releases we're putting out, or, you know, they had to, you know, they were shrinking their efforts and they couldn't run everything anymore. And I thought, well, this is a better way to get out information. People are online all the time. Things are going to come across their eyesight when they're looking at things. And, you know, since working at college, you're trying to reach out to young people and they're all online, so they're not going to read the newspaper. So for me, it was a better way to get the word out about things going on. And, you know, it's kind of fun. It's, you know, unexplored territory. You know, this is all just starting right now. So it's cool to start to look at it and be involved at the beginning.
Gotcha. So for those people who don't know who Constant Contact is or what they do, can you kind of give us a brief overview of, you know, the company you work for?
Yeah. So our primary tool is email marketing. We started out in email marketing for small businesses and nonprofits. We also offer campaigns where you can create a Facebook promotion or offers and coupons. Nonprofits can run donation campaigns. You can run your events through us and surveys and a couple of other things. So we really focus on giving small businesses and nonprofits the marketing tools they need to get the word out about their business and grow their business.
Awesome, awesome. Now you mentioned before, and this is kind of a personal question that I want to ask. You do a lot of webinars. So how do you see as that the ability for people to do like Google Hangouts, like we're doing right now, and the ability for businesses to capitalize on doing these webinars? Has it changed the way you guys do business at Constant Contact? Because I know that's part of a lot of what you do.
With the webinars, I mean, we're still focusing on providing education for everybody. I mean, you don't have to be a customer to take
Right.
any of our webinars. The majority of our education is free. There are occasional paid webinars that we have, but and anybody can host a webinar now or use Google Hangouts to run it themselves. So we're still using the traditional technology like GoToWebinar is what we use to
Right.
run our webinars. But it's still a big process to hold a webinar. So we're really not seeing, we think we're doing a great job and we're getting a lot of people in to see our webinars. But we've experimented with Google Hangouts from time to time, but pretty much just staying the same, trying to create content based on what our audience is really looking for, talking to them a lot, seeing what they need help with, and then creating webinar content around that. And then trying more things to make webinars more interactive, using polls and asking people to talk back to us in the chat window, and providing materials afterwards that they can use like workbooks and worksheets and checklists, because people really want that kind of hands-on stuff to have at their desk to remember what they've learned.
Gotcha. Well, thanks. I'm fascinated because I think it's becoming more and more easy to use for, the small businesses. It used to be I couldn't do a webinar because, the cost, it was prohibitive, or I didn't have the technology. And now it's really opened up the doors so people can train and educate and do a show even like this one, and it doesn't take an arm and a leg or, a master's degree in technology to figure out.
And you can do how-to stuff with the Google Hangouts. You can show people what's on your desktop. So if you have a online-based software, you can show them how to use their product or give them instructions on how to do something online. It's really great.
Awesome. Well, one of the questions I wanted to ask was, how does Constant Contact use Pinterest in their marketing strategy? I mean, I think you have like 30,000 people following you guys, or more.
47,000.
47. It's grown that much in a week. You have a ton of people following you on Pinterest. So, I mean, you guys are constantly putting out great content. So how do you guys use Pinterest kind of in your overall marketing strategy?
Yeah, we have a couple of things that we like to do with Pinterest. The first, of course, you've got to put your own content out. So it's a way for us to share and pin our content on different boards. I mean, on Pinterest that not everybody follows your whole profile. So there's different people following you on different boards. So framing content in different ways, providing them in the resources that they're looking for, but also being a good content curator and bringing a lot of resources together under the topics people are searching for on Pinterest, and how-to information, blog posts and videos, but just related things too, like inspirational quotes. Quotes are huge on Pinterest and people really love them. And we know the small business owners and nonprofits we work with, they need a little inspiration from time to time. So those quotes are nice little reminders to get up and go and, keep trying hard and reach your goals. And so really, just a little bit of a lifestyle resource, but also a lot of educational resource. I mean, I read tons of blogs. I read your blog. I scan blogs every day looking for helpful marketing information and bookmark that so people can get to that right away.
Awesome. When you were talking about that, a question popped up. How often do you create new boards? Like when you're creating content, like, a year ago, I didn't have an Instagram board really. I mean, it was really still too new and I didn't do it. How often do you create new boards or retire boards that you think are no longer relevant? Kind of what your strategy there is.
Well, it's funny you ask because I really do for a spring cleaning right now. I do want to go through and organize a couple of boards. And so we do have a lot. I mean, we've got around 120, I think, right now. So that's one thing I want to do is, make sure that we're going through and we've got up-to-date information and trying not to be so dated. In past years, we have a couple of, boards with the year in them and trying to be more evergreen about that now. I just created a board this week for Small Business Week, and we had this great collection of quotes for a slide share that we put out. It was 59 pieces of advice for small businesses. What's the best piece of advice you've ever got? So I created a new board so we can pin all those separate quotes and advice, and I can tag the people who are on Pinterest in those. But I try not to create them, too often to get too crowded. But
Right.
when something special like that comes up, I mean, you want a board like that to capture all the quotes in one place. Otherwise, they're going to get lost among other things. And this is a campaign effort, a certain project that we're working on right now. So I think it needed its own board.
Yeah, and we were talking in the green room. It's a really great, the Small Business Week campaign you're doing is really good with the chalkboards and the quotes. And it works good for Instagram and Pinterest. So it works really well together. So guys, make sure you go check that out. I want to do a quick shout out to a couple of folks in the audience. We've got Martin is in the audience, Mike Alton, of course, and, Jim Sharp, who's one of the biggest supporters of the show. Thanks, Jim, for stopping by today. Make sure you ask questions because we have Azure in the house right now, and she's a wealth of information. So the other question I wanted to ask you, what's your kind of typical day look like when you're working with Pinterest? What's your time investment versus, like other social media networks? Do you spend, first part of the morning, you spend most of your time on Pinterest, or how does that kind of work for you?
Yeah, so I run Pinterest and Instagram for Constant Contact, and I've really kept track of the analytics over the time I've been using them to find out when's the best time for us to pin and when's the best time for us to share photos on Instagram. So at Pinterest, we work, we have a lot of small businesses and nonprofits that look for information for us, and they're probably not looking at Pinterest at midnight on a weekday. So I try to start my day in the morning when they're active and online and looking for things and logging in for the day before it gets too crazy and they're scanning the pins to look for things. So I like to start my day by reading a lot of blogs I have bookmarked on Feedly, but also going through the feed itself. And we try to follow some great people and repinning their content, or looking at Pinterest interests, or doing searches to see what people are pinning. And then taking some time in the middle of the day to check the feed as well. I also schedule some pins in the morning by using the Tailwind app. Mm-hmm. And then in the afternoon is when I post to Instagram, because the analytics we've used showed us that the evening is a really good time for us to post. I'm not sure why. If people are on their commute on public transportation, they're flipping through Instagram. That's my guess. I'm in the car, so I can't look at Instagram.
Right.
So trying to post at the end of the day before I leave, because that's a really good time for us to get engagement on Instagram. But through the day, just making sure I'm checking on things. I mean, I've got all the alerts on my phone. So if people are commenting on a pin or, doing something on Instagram, I can make sure I can get to that right away if I need to.
That's a good point, because I have noticed, and you guys do a great job of it, is you comment on somebody, like if I pinned your pin, you'd like say, hey, Jeff, thanks. I mean, I know you don't do that all the time, but I know you make an effort to do that for people. And I think that's an kind of tapped thing that people don't do on Pinterest, because a lot of people don't comment, and when they do, it really stands out. So what are your thoughts on commenting, and how often do you kind of check that or whatever?
Every time a notification comes by, I try to check on that and see, did somebody have a question, or is there some kind of discussion going on that I can contribute? I've been getting some spam comments recently that, they're saying the same thing on multiple pins. So just kind of, as long as it's not crazy, I'm okay with leaving it up there.
Right.
And also trying to be strategic. I pinned something for, Awesome Merchandise, which is located in the UK today. They had a small business piece of advice that I pinned today, and I pinned in the morning because I knew it was later in the day for them, and they saw it and they commented, so I was able to talk to them right away. So that was really good. And just checking my phone too. I mean, it's not a big deal for me to be at home at night and see something and come across my phone and try to respond to a comment. I mean, it takes a couple seconds, and it's worth it to establish those relationships with people.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have any like super secret strategies that you said what, 47,000 people? I can't remember.
Mm-hmm. 47,000.
Yeah, a lot of people. Do you have any like growth hacks that you use to help grow your Pinterest account? Is there something that, if a small business is listening to this or watching this, that you could say, if you do this, this really helps with growth?
Yeah, lots of things. One of the things is to make sure you're pinning at the right times, and tools like Tailwind will help you figure out when to optimize your pins at what day and time is getting the most attention for you, and to keep checking on that, because for a while for us it was Sunday nights. I guess people were, winding down weekend, sitting on the couch with the iPad flipping through Pinterest.
Right.
Then it changed to Monday morning, so I made sure to keep track and keep an eye on that, so that now the content I really want people to see, I'm posting that on Monday morning, because I know it's going to get more attention than other days and times of the week. So being strategic about your time and day, being strategic about the type of image you're pinning. Long images do really well because they're going to stand out in the feed. They're going to take up way more room. And things like checklists do really well. Infographics do really well. People like to have all these stats and facts in one place that they can access later. They love checklists or things that give you ideas, like blog post ideas or subject line ideas, things that help them make their day a little bit better and easier and faster in regard to marketing. Quotes, like I said, are really, really big on Pinterest. So trying to find, pretty ones and good ones and relevant ones, but then you can make your own too. There's lots of great articles out there or relevant quotes for the time of the year, like President's Day. I can't remember if it was Inc. or one of those magazines had a really good list of presidential motivational quotes, so take those and use some tools like Canva or PicMonkey and make a really great quote image with that. And those tools are free, easy to use. So also tagging people in your pins. I try to do that a lot. Just because with the volume of things going on Pinterest, it's going to get lost all in those notifications, but try to tag people who do a great job on Pinterest and influencers and people who write blogs to let them know, hey, I saw your great post and I'm going to pin it for you. So making sure you tag them in the comments. And also following people that are relevant to your industry. That's going to give you more content to pin and repin, and just making sure you're giving back, that you're not just pinning stuff that you find, but you're repinning things as well. People really like that you take the time and you saw something that they pinned that you really liked and you thought it was good enough to share with your followers.
Yeah, those are great tips. Wow. I need to go back and watch that again. I use you guys as an example of because a lot of business to business companies, they struggle with visual marketing. They struggle with, how am I going to get out there on social network? Business to business just doesn't work right, but I use you guys as an example of how to do it right, because you guys really excel and you're a business to business company. So what struggles have you guys overcome? I mean, did you struggle with that when you first started running their accounts, or did you just go in and said, it doesn't matter, I'm just going to pin good stuff and go for it?
Well, I think the problem with people who are companies that are B2Bs is they're thinking, I don't have this physical product to take pictures of, so what am I supposed to pin? And we have an online product, so we can take screenshots of that. We have, but we also have a lot of knowledge that we're sharing, and that's visual. I mean, you put an image with a blog post, and then you've got a pin. So as long as you've got some great visual to go with the things, with the content on your website, you've got pinnable content. You can also take photos. We have a hashtag we use around here, hashtag CTCT Life. And so we've got a fun office. If you're ever in the Boston area, please come visit. It's kind of, a tech startup feel. We've got skee ball, we've got ping pong, we've got food trucks, we've got all kinds of cool stuff. And so we encourage the employees to take photos of showing off the culture here. So I like to pin those photos as well. So you can pin the people, and people love pictures of people. So that's a great asset that you have. If you've got a fun work environment and good people who work for you, you can pin them during their day or doing the work, or things like sharing their expertise. One of the things that we do on Instagram that I've pinned on Pinterest is every Friday on Instagram, we share a marketing tip. We call it Fail Friday. Right. And it's to show people that we didn't come out as perfect marketers. We had some bumps along the way, and we learned some things along the way. Now we know what to do instead. So every Friday I take a picture of someone at Constant Contact, and they use a chalkboard. They hold up the chalkboard and they write down what their marketing fail was. And so they hold it up, and I take a picture of them, and I write a caption that's kind of, I consider, a mini blog post explaining who the person is and what was the marketing fail and what you should do instead. And that's a really cool way to humanize tips and show that, people, they had to work to get here too, and we're all human, and you might be going through the same thing, and it's okay because we're all making mistakes.
That's one of my favorite things that you guys do on Friday. I mean, one of my favorite things you put content. Do you have an example? Because there's some really funny ones of gosh, I can't remember. There's something about
Oh, the funniest one was the LinkedIn dating. One of my coworkers just accepted somebody's LinkedIn request out of the blue, and
yeah.
then the next thing she knows, he messages her and asks her out on a date.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's a good
So
one.
the tip there was to make sure that you are doing a little background on the people who want to connect with you on LinkedIn, if what their motives are.
Exactly. That's a good one. Well, here I've got a question from our audience, and this is from Martin, and it's a good one. And I'll read it because it's not coming up all the way on the screen. But it says, "Hi Jeff and Azure. Like your account, most of my boards are about social media. This information tends to become out of date quite quickly due to the fact that changes in social media are going so fast. I often see pins with tips for Pinterest in 2013, which aren't valid anymore, or for other social media platforms. What's your opinion on this? How does Constant Contact deal with this? I clean content every 3 months." And it's one of my pet peeves, actually,
Me too.
is when I see people repinning stuff that is so out of date that it's not. So that's why I always tell people to check their links. What I do is I go and I click on the link, and if it leads to old content, like over a year, I don't pin it. Unless it's evergreen and really, really good, that will, it's worth sharing. And then if you don't see the date, like on the blog post that has a date at the top, usually you can scroll down to the bottom and look at the comments, and you
That's
can
what I do
see where
too.
the comments are, how long ago people comment. If it's like 6 months ago where there's a comment, I'm probably not going to pin that one. What about you,
Yeah.
Ezra?
Yeah. So we don't clean out the pins that are older like that, just in case maybe somebody comes across it, but maybe the information is old, but maybe they click into our profile to see what we're about. So that's another potential chance for us to get another follower or somebody interested in our company. But I do also, I've tried to be a good curator. And so when I see pins in the feed that look interesting to me, and I go back and I check the date, nothing older than a year, unless it's tips that you can apply just as regular best practices that you can apply no matter what the year is.
Right, right. Yes. Another thing is, and we talked about infographics a little bit earlier. One thing I'm always preaching is to make sure that you're thinking about mobile users, because 75 to I think 80% of all Pinterest users are on mobile. And so some of those infographics you cannot read even on a big iPhone 6 Plus. So make sure that if you're creating it or even repinning it, that you can still view it on a mobile device and not just click repin. So
Yeah, that's a good thing too with the text that you use. Make sure that's large enough to be seen.
mhm,
I've had some Instagram posts I've had to redo because the text wasn't that clear on mobile. So, you need to make that text a little bigger than you thought you would, so people can easily read it on mobile.
exactly. One of my friend, Lisa Meredith, on a previous episode that when she was on, she mentioned she has had a lot of success for her Pinterest clients in generating leads. In fact, one of hers, I think he's like 58% of all his leads came from Pinterest. Um, so, what are some of your advice? Because I know Constant Contact is all about email and all that, so that small businesses can grow their email list with Pinterest. Do you have some advice for that?
Yeah, you absolutely can. You should be linking to your email sign-up form in pins. You could do things like pin a tip from your newsletter and tease it and say, "Hey, we've got more great tips like this. You'll get them. We set this newsletter out yesterday. And here's the tip today. You could get that newsletter before anybody else. Sign up for our list." You could do things like we have tools like text to join, so you can text. You could pick a word in your account, and we have the phone number, and people can just text that word and start the process to sign up for your list.
Mm,
You can image that says text cupcakes, or whatever the word you choose is for your
right.
business, and they'll see it on Pinterest. They could do it right there. They've got their phone on them, or they're looking at Pinterest through their phone too. So give away talk about the things that you talk about in your newsletter, give away some of your knowledge and your tips, and really show people what the value is of subscribing to your newsletter, and then make it easy for them by providing that link on that pin for them to get directly to that sign up form. And do things like give things away, give away ebooks or guides. And if you set it up where they have to enter their email address to get that sent to them, publicize that guide or whatever that giveaway is, or webinar that they need to sign up for to get that information, and then make a pin out of that, and then lead them directly for them to sign up with you.
Awesome. Well, that's interesting you say that about the texting to sign up for an email form, because I'm actually started a service that I do that for a podcast. A lot of podcasters doing that because the thinking is that it's because they're already on a mobile device, listen to it at the gym or whatever. It's easier than going to a website and signing up. Is that the same kind of thing as you're thinking for Pinterest? Have you seen success with that?
No, we haven't done that with our list, but I have seen customers of ours do things like on Pinterest and Instagram. I mean, if
Mm,
they've got a keyword that's easy to use and they've got the phone number, it's really simple for people to do it instead of having to remember to go back to your website or filling out a long form. I mean, it's really easy with the text to join to just submit the email address to you, and then you've got on behind the scenes you're setting up some thank you messages and things like that. But it's really easy on the person who's signing up on their end to do it. So whatever makes it easy for people is, that's a good option to try.
yeah, good. That's a good point. Um, how does Constant Contact create its visuals for Pinterest? Do you do them all yourself? Do you have a team? Do you have like, I'm asking all these questions at once, so write them down. Do you have like a theme? Like, I know you did the small business thing. Did you have a campaign say, okay, we're going to create images that's all based around that small business week? How do you guys kind of go about it in-house for creating your images on Pinterest?
Yeah, so for the day-to-day things like images for a blog post or when we create our own content, we're a corporate office, so we have some branding guidelines and some color schemes and images and logos that we tend to use to make everything look branded and consistently from us. So we're either getting things from our creative department or our content team. We're always creating images for different things, and we make sure we're keeping in touch with each other and sharing, what's going on with each other, so we know what's coming up and that we can pin things, we know to watch for things, or we're sending each other where these images are, on our files and our drives. But we also, I also do some pins with the branding itself, or sometimes I'll see an article from somebody else and it's a great article, but they have no image to pin with it. So I'll just do something quick on Canva or PicMonkey. It's their article, so our logo is nowhere near on there at all. I just put the title of the blog post with some kind of interesting visuals and then just make a quick pin for that, because I think the information is just so valuable to people that I'd rather take the 5 minutes and create a pin for it than not pin it at all.
That's a good point. That's good. I've done that as well, for some people that I thought, this is just great. I just need a special graphic.
The worst is when you read a great blog post about Pinterest and there's nothing to pin.
Exactly.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, what are you thinking? Now, on Cynthia's show, you mentioned and you kind of mentioned it before with the Small Business Week, that you create boards just for special events, which was intriguing to me because I'd never thought of that before. So can you give some advice or thoughts on how you guys do that?
Yeah, so Small Business Week, which is this week, is a great example of creating a board for an event. We take pictures of what you're doing and pin those to the board, pin relevant articles. There's lots of people writing about Small Business Week and infographics. We created an infographic about how small business owners have the hardest job in America, and lots of great stats about, what they do. And so we pin that. Other people who are writing about Small Business Week, photos from the events that we're having, the quotes. We have our exec team. They also offered some small business advice. So we did like we would do with Fail Friday. They wrote their advice on the chalkboard, and we took pictures of that too. So just anything that you could make visual around an event to show people, your expertise on it and what you did, is really helpful to, get that information out there about your event and what your company's about.
Gotcha. Now, when that event's over, do you rotate that to the bottom or do you merge it with other boards? How do you
Yeah,
usually
I do. Absolutely. Yeah, I move things up and down. And and I don't remember which blog I read this on, but one of the best pieces of advice I learned about Pinterest boards is make those first 2 Pinterest boards count, because that's what people are seeing on mobile on your profile. So if there's something really important going on, I'm moving that board to either the number 1 or number 2 spot. But things that are like Small Business Week and that's over, I'll eventually move that further on down. But then when the holidays start, I'll be moving those boards up. Or if there's a certain topic going on, or I find out that there's a certain type of information people are really looking for right now, then I'll move that towards the top so if people can find it right away.
Gotcha. Good advice. Good advice about those rotating boards. Do you use Pinterest to collaborate with your team at all? I mean, I can't remember if you mentioned how many people you have working with you, but do you use that to kind of plan out new campaigns like the next event coming up?
We've used it to test things before. We have a visual content webinar where we were trying to figure out how to teach about Pinterest image sizes. So we made a secret board and made different images with, where we labeled it as to show you what size it was. So things like that. If we're creating a board and we don't want just one or two pins on it, we'll make it a secret board and then fill it up a little bit and then make it public. So things like that. But the bookmarking for the resources, the same kind of things we share with the public, are also resources we use a lot too. We've got all our guides pinned there, and so and it's not. In the past, it hadn't been organized on our website really well. Now it is, but when it wasn't, we knew that we could always go to the Pinterest board with all of our guides and find everything easily. And really, it is better than having a bunch of text leaks, because then you can see the covers of the guides and you can visually recognize what you're looking for right away.
Gotcha. What do you think your ratio to creating your own content, your own content, and repinning? Do you have do you have a blog post once a week, or you have like a couple times a week and then you repin all the other times? What's your kind of ratio on that?
We have a blog post, at least one, if not two posts a day on the blog. So I pin those every day. Okay. And then occasionally we'll have other things like guides coming out or infographics or things like that. Or one of our people might write for a publication and I'll pin those. So that's a daily that's daily content that I share. But I also do a lot of curation. So I have a whole list of blogs that I organize in Feedly by topic. And so I go through those headlines every day to see if there's anything relevant that our audience might like. So I curate those pins, and then I also go through the feed as well and curate any pin that might be interesting to us. But so it's probably about an 80-20 split, where you're curating and just helping people, finding them resources, but also sharing your content as well, but not overdoing it and being too salesy about it. Right. Just making sure you're providing helpful and interesting content to people.
Gotcha. Do you you mentioned Tailwind as your scheduler, and that's what I use as well. But are most of your pins scheduled? Do you do a lot of organic at a certain time, or do you pretty much schedule your pins out throughout the day?
I do a mix. I do some scheduling if I know like those dates and times that work really well for us according to Tailwind. If there's something high profile that I really want people to notice, I'll schedule it for those good days and times. But otherwise, and I do schedule some other pins when I go through the blog posts in the morning and take a look. But then there's times where I check in on the feed during the day and just start to spontaneously pin some things that I see to kind of mix it up a little bit. And I know I've read it in a couple places that with the smart feed that, pinning organically is going to work better in your favor than using a third-party tool. But using the third-party tool really helps when you have a day full of meetings and you can't pin.
Exactly. Well, do you have a kind of a guesstimate of how many pins you do a day?
Probably around a dozen, give or take.
Cool. I'm really interested in this because of the large kind of corporate aspect, but do you guys participate or even started your own group boards? Is that part of your Pinterest strategy?
Yeah, we have. We have done holiday boards in the past, offering some holiday marketing tips from other experts or marketing partners that we've worked with. So we'll have group boards and we've had them pin their advice too. So things like that, that's a really good time to, people are looking all over for that kind of information. So that's a great thing because you don't have to come up with the content for that board, all of it. Other people are doing it too. And then it's also a nice reality check to see, well, what are other people talking about? What are they interested in? What do they think are good tips to share? And have we missed any of those or not talked about any of those yet?
Gotcha. Do you guys, are you part of any other group boards? I mean, you have your own, but do you go and do other people's?
Yeah, we're part of a Pinterest group board. I forget the marketing firm that set that up. I'm scratching my brain. I can't. But we're part of a Pinterest group board. So it's like notable Pinterest blogs is about kind of about that topic. And then there's the infographics board that we're a member of as well. So we're a member of a couple of boards like that.
Okay, yeah. That's interesting. I just didn't know if that fit into the other people. I know a lot of individual pinners do that. I just didn't know if a lot of corporations or corporate does that. So that's very interesting.
Well, it's nice when a peer, asks you to be on one of their boards. It's a nice little partnership. And then when you see the list of the other people who are on there too, and you go, wow, these are all great people. It's nice to be in their company on this board.
That's right. Yeah, my instant Instagram tips board was, I was telling Peg about it. She says, hey, can I pin to it? And I'm like, well, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, no problem there. So yeah, so that's really helped too. And it is interesting to see her content versus where I'm finding stuff. And once in a while we'll have some of the same, but most of the time she's getting it from a different source. And and it's really cool how you can really cover that topic well just by inviting other people and being part of a group board. So
that's really helpful because there's so many blogs out there and everybody's got their own different set of things they look at every day. So there's lots of sources you're going to overlook unless somebody introduces you in that way.
Yeah, exactly. For small business owners who only have a few minutes a day for social media overall, not just Pinterest, what are some key metrics that they should be looking at to kind of gauge their performance and effectiveness?
Well, everybody's going to start by looking at followers first, and it's important to keep an eye on that. You don't want 0 followers, but
Right.
that's referred to as a vanity metric. Don't get caught up in your vanity metric. What you want to look at is your engagement. Are people interacting with what you're putting out there? That's really going to tell you the value of what you're sharing and the effectiveness of your social media. So are people liking, sharing, commenting on things that you're doing, how much of your content is getting engagement. So that's really what you want to look at. Am I providing value to people? And as they engage with you and they're sharing your stuff and they're talking about you, then that's great social word of mouth for your business. So really think about, not only the engagement and then the type of content that you're sharing, what's working better for you. We keep seeing that visuals really knock everything else out of the park. So making sure that you're sharing the right type of content that people like, the right topics people like, and being mindful of the frequency and the days of the week too. I mean, if you don't pin it when people are most likely to see it, they're going to miss it. So you need to keep an eye on that.
Exactly. Well, this is a question I ask every guest at the end of our show, because this is a Manly Pinterest Tips show. Do you have any advice for guys who are just getting started on Pinterest?
Yeah, I'd say don't get hung up on, women. There's a lot of women on Pinterest.
Right.
Just think about the target audience you're trying to reach. Are they interested in the kinds of things you're sharing? Like, go on Pinterest and start doing some searches on the keywords that you might be using in your pins. And are there pins like that already? Well, yeah, great. If there are, that shows interest in what you're talking about, what you're sharing. I would also advise you to go and see if your blog or your website, if people are pinning from your website or your blog already. I mean, you don't have to be on Pinterest for people to start pinning from your website or blog. So you can go to source.pinterest.com/ the name of your website. So for example, source.pinterest.com/ blogs.constantcontact.com. You can see what people have pinned from our blogs. And that's a really good indicator of, wow, I should be on Pinterest because people are already pinning the images from my site. And I gave the example of my husband, who's a photographer who has done a lot of weddings, and one of the things people use pictures for is planning their wedding. So I showed him people were pinning his pictures from his website. So it's a good thing to consider, maybe, to use Pinterest to get the word out about what you're doing. If they're already sharing your content out there, you've already got an audience starting to build up.
Exactly. That is a great point. And I bet if most people go do that, if they have a website that's been around for a while, they will be shocked to find out how many people are actually pinning their images if they have some on their website to Pinterest. I think they'll be surprised if they haven't done that.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah. Now we'll have this on the event page and on the show notes, but where can we find out about you and your services?
So our website is at constantcontact.com. You can check out the services we offer. We also have a lot of great resources at blogs.constantcontact.com. So like I said, we post daily. So you can see all of the posts that we share about online marketing, email marketing, social media marketing. We also have links to our events there. So you can check out our free webinars. And not only do we do webinars here at the corporate headquarters, but we have other people across the country and other partners and people we call regional development directors who are all over the United States and Canada and the UK. They're holding webinars, but they're also holding in-person events in your town. So you can go on there and check out the events and see if there's something you can go to in person, or if you're not able to get out during the day and you want to go check out a webinar, you can do that too.
Awesome. That's awesome. And as always, I'd love for you guys to head over to manlypinteresttips.com, click on the sidebar and subscribe to the email community so you'll never miss a great guest like Azure we had today. And Azure, thanks so much for coming on again after all the trouble we had the
Happy
first
to do
time.
it.
Yeah, it was great. And also, when we mentioned it before, you can now go to, you can text Manly Pinterest Tips to 33444 and sign up to get on that email list as well. That's Manly Pinterest Tips to 33444. Because at Manly Pinterest Tips, we're always adding testosterone one pin at a time. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye now.
Thank you.